Negotiation, that's the number one talent we all need as individuals. If we're in sales, your ability to negotiate is the most critical part of being successful. And I think, quite honestly, that's the only thing we actually get paid to do in this industry, is to have the ability to be able to negotiate deals. So we're going to dive into some negotiation techniques that are absolutely incredible to ensure that you're getting better sales volume in your business. So before we get started, I'm Aaron Hodson, CEO and founder of Sellwell. And so we're going to dive into some different strategies around being a really, really good negotiator and making sure that we've got the ability to get and close more transactions. And I think the very first thing I want to dive into is, I think historically we've been one-trick ponies. I know this sounds a little bit rough, but we have one offering, we go in, my job is to do this, and we let people choose whether that's what they want to do. Yes, no scenario. So one of the things we've really, really worked on over the years, and I think this is really understanding how sales works in general, is people love choices. People love options. And the best way I like to sum this up is, if you've ever had teenage kids, give them one option, they hate you. It's the worst thing, you've ruined my life. And toddlers, actually just people in general, give them one choice, it's a yes-no scenario. But if you give them multiple choices, even if they hate all of them, they'll still pick one, and lo and behold, we start moving forward. So if you've ever been in that scenario, think about your sales business as well. And I always like to, whenever I'm sitting in a sales situation, for this example, listing appointment, perfect example, hot topic for our industry right now. Ensuring that you've got lots of listings is going to ensure the life stability of your business. And so I used to get a lot of rejection because, hey, here's my sales strategy. Here's what I'm going to do. Would you like to move forward? And you do that awkward stare. You're ready to move forward. They go, well, I need some time to think about it. I'm not sure whether I like this, or this. Until I realized I was just giving them one thing to choose from. And so I thought, what if I could create an option scenario, like a menu? Here's all the different things that I can offer you. Which one would you like to move forward? I watched my close ratio go through the roof because people made a choice. You just think about life in general. Every time you sign up for something online, there's an option of all the different memberships you can have. They'll obviously point you to the one they want you to take. But generally, when you've got a choice, you'll pick one. Quite often, the first choice is a very cheap, easy, sort of very limited access to anything, but it lets you start something lighter, and if you like it, you move forward. So why wouldn't we look at real estate sales the same? That was my theory. So why don't we look at doing things a little bit different? So the first thing I did was I understood what my biggest objections were. A lot of people would object to a very, very long listing agreement. It seems like a really big commitment. So that would create the first objection. Big objections to communication. I don't want to hear from you that often, or I want to hear from you on a regular basis. So I started to have a look at all the different objections. Pricing was another one. And coming up with different options that I could build into my listing strategy that would enable them to make a choice. The other big one, we talked about this earlier today, was marketing. We think that is the greatest aspect of sales, that people choose us based on our marketing. And I think there are a lot of situations where that's true, where people sit down and they have a look at what you're offering. And if they like it, they move forward. And if they don't, they don't. So very first thing I did when I started creating options, and it's an old sales technique, but it was very effective, where I created 3 different marketing strategies that I would provide for my sellers when they sold their home. And so I would sit down, if we got to that point of the conversation, going, well, here's the 3 different marketing campaigns that I offer. I can do option A, option B, option C. These are all the different packages. Now, when we put your home on the market, which one of these would you like? And then I just tend to sit there and look at them and say, and they choose. And quite often you'll see the home seller will go, well, if we put our home on the market, we absolutely want to use option C. That is one of the best closing signals you ever see, because they've made a choice. So now that shows me a little bit of motivation. And then I thought, why don't we just take this a whole step further? I've got your commitment to a marketing campaign. And then if I sat down and talked about the listing agreement, and I'm always going to start at the top. Look, standard listing agreements, 90 days, 120 days, whatever your brokerage is doing. And would generally create another objection where people would go, man, 120 days seems like a long time. Actually, one of my very interesting things that I like to say about the listing agreement, and this is where a lot of people can get an offside with it, is if we've got a market where the average transaction's happening in 30 days, what is the need for a 120-day listing agreement? Became a great objection, because I actually had somebody ask me that once, and I thought, that's a really good question. Like, if I'm selling homes in 30 days, why do I need your commitment for 120? But then it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, why don't I just address that and go, like, we'd feel more comfortable signing a 30-day listing agreement. And if they said yes, I would, I could put that right in front of them and then sign a 30-day listing agreement. Now, the difference is you've got to have the confidence that you're going to give them everything you possibly can in the first 30 days. Because I'm also a big believer, give me an opportunity, I'm going to give you everything I can throw at you so that I can actually get another opportunity. And so for me, that was just another option I created. Shorter listing agreements, different time frames, allowing people to get comfortable with the process. Like, never, the home sale process is one of the most stressful things people go through. And if they're already stressing out about putting their home on the market, the next thing you don't want them to stress about is having this 120-day commitment to someone that they hardly know. So why don't we start a little lighter? That for me was actually one of the best ones that I had. I had a lot of listings that I would have lost if I'd said 120-day agreement or nothing. I had a lot of people that I said, look, if you feel a little uncomfortable, let's start for 30 days. Let's see how it goes. If you feel comfortable, we can get an extension. And that absolutely turned into some of the best relationships I ever had in my career because I gave them a starting point. I do know there's probably a few people out there that don't want to do that because they know in 30 days they're probably going to show very little value. But that's the sort of whole highlight of this business is we've got to step up. We've got to start showing people exactly what we can do and probably take a few chances and some risk with their own business of going, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I list your property for 30 days. I get some opens. I get some market exposure. I get the ability to show you what I can do, theoretically, a great job interview. And if I can actually do what I say I'm going to do, I've got the ability to extend it. I'm also starting the extension process pretty early after the first 2 weeks. I generally start having that conversation about 2 weeks in. And ironically, Katie, most of the time, after a week or so, they'd ask for it. Because I'd already shown them. The nerves have gone. And the most awkward part about any, this is the first week or two. They put their home on the market. There's an offer coming in the first day. And then if that doesn't happen, frustration kicks in. And then really what they're doing is looking for how I support them through that process. But let's be really honest. The way our market is right now, 2 to 3 weeks, I've got an offer, goes under contract, the whole conversation about an extension is obsolete. But I would say ideally, it's every 2 weeks. 2 weeks you start having a conversation about it. But just a little side note, there was a way that I sort of got in front of that before it happened. And when I looked at my options as well, one of the other things that I realized no realtor has is we have a commitment of result. Like we got a contract saying we're going to try and market and sell your home for X amount of dollars, but where's the commitment about what I'm going to do for you? So one of the other options that I put in front of people, now this is a brave one, you've got to be very, very careful when you want to do this, was something that we called my promise. I actually started talking to kids. I think you always say if you're talking to young kids, you should never break a promise. And I thought that should be a really good life lesson for all of us. So I created a document in my business called My Promise, which was my commitment of service to you as my client. And that had 4 agreements that I was going to do for you throughout the entire process we worked together. And if I didn't do it, you had the right to cancel the agreement, which they have anyway. But it just made it more committed to me, but it was also designed to give them some comfort. And so just to give you a couple of ideas, just so you know, we're very structured to work for me as well. So it was also looking at a lot of the things that created bad relationships. My number one, my very first one was this is a partnership. Now, this is a tough one, but it's why I always make it like number one. And in any great partnership, number one thing you need to have is everybody being really honest with each other. And the reason I've got this in this agreement is because it means I'm going to give you some feedback that you may not like to hear. In any great partnership, it's about being honest. Throughout this whole process, I'm your eyes and ears to the market, and my job is to share with you the feedback exactly the way I get it from the consumer. And I just want you to be really open and understand that's what my role is. But it also works both ways, which means that you need to be 100% honest with me as well. If there's something you don't like, you feel uncomfortable about something, share it with me. So I'd always start with setting it up right. There's a partnership. We need to be 100% honest with each other. My one was that I'm going to meet with you twice a week via phone or in person, depending on where you were, to discuss exactly what's happening with the marketing of your property. That's a price reduction meeting, or it's a marketing meeting to really understand exactly what's happening. Rule 1, me being honest, we've had 5 people through, 3 of them hated it, didn't like it, didn't fit with what they were looking for. 2 showed a little bit of interest, just constantly getting the feedback that it's probably a little high in the market based on the competitors. Gave me the ability to have those conversations with you early because I set it up with that commitment at the beginning. My third one, and I can thank Ring Doorbell for this one, my third one is that I'm going to give you honest feedback on every showing within 2 hours of showing the property. Because back in my day when the Ring doorbells came out, I'd go and show a client a home, and then within 30 seconds of me walking past the Ring doorbell, the homeowner's texting me, what happened? And that creates frustration because if I'm still with the client, I'm not responding, they get more and more frustrated until I get the feedback. So by just having an understanding that I will give you honest feedback after, showing 2 hours after doing it, gave them a little time to relax. I also would package it up by saying, hey, the longer it takes me to give you feedback, generally the better it's going. When I call you straight away, generally means there wasn't a lot of interest and so forth. And that was just because I ran into some situations where I'd show a client's home, I'd call them a couple of hours later, and you could hear that frustration on the phone. Oh, I expected to hear from you earlier. You did it at 2 o'clock. It's now 5 o'clock, and it's like, sure, seems unreasonable. Still my problem to fix because I didn't set the expectation. And last one, which is going to take a whole nother video to explain this one to you, but it was solving a problem that I had when I got a lot of volume. Like when I was, homes a month, that was the biggest problem that I had, or the biggest objection that I had sitting in front of a client, was who's going to sell my house? Like who's showing up? Like you send an assistant, or is it just some brand new agent? Who's going to show up and sell my house? And I actually started to see my business go downhill. I started to see people not call me in because they didn't think they were going to get that personal touch. And so this became a little bit of an oh shit moment, Katie. It was something that I thought it was genius when I did it. And then, I got home, I thought, what have you done? It actually turned out to be the greatest thing that I ever did in my business, because it gave me control back over what I did. And that fourth thing for me was, nobody's ever going to enter your home unless I'm there. It's amazing how many people signed listing agreements with me just because I had that on there. You talk about selling someone's personal home, having some trust. Don't you worry to do some quick thinking and some pretty interesting strategies straight after that, because I thought, man, I got a lot of listings. This is going to be really, really challenging. But I also looked at the whole structure of everything, and most of the things that I was just doing during the day was fitting in people who couldn't manage their own time. And so I created showing days where you could only view my listings on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. Obviously, there was some around that. If I had an agent that, proof of funds and pre-approval and they were ready to go and there's a real genuine reason for seeing it early, always accommodate that. But for the average agent that was just showing a client 5, 10, 15 homes on a day, no pre-approval, you come and see it in my showing times. 2 to 4 on a Tuesday, Thursday afternoon, got me all the time back in my business. And irrespective of that, it gave my clients so much confidence to know that the person they trusted to sell their home is actually going to be there representing them. I'd have a little disclaimer that said, rare occasions, based on your approval, I would allow my assistant Bernie, who was a licensed agent, to show the property as well. That became one of the most powerful things in my business, because that's now a commitment of service, not a commitment of result.
And you write it down.
Well, I wrote it down. I made a whole document, Katie. It had a brand, it had a logo, they signed it. It was literally the most non-legally binding contract you'll ever sign in your entire life. But I think it's also, this industry where it's a lot of tell me. Everybody tells you what they'll do. But I think making it real by putting it in a document, having us both sign it and date it, that was more of the show me. Like, I'll show you what I'm going to do. I've signed a document that says if I don't commit to the service that I've agreed to, you can cancel my agreement, I'm gone. In that freedom of choice. This whole conversation is about giving people choices. Contracts sometimes take away a lot of people's choice. Contract, you've got to adhere to it, and a lot of people use that as that's what we're coming back to. But I also think contract should never be an issue if we've actually provided to step up and do the things we want. And I built an incredible career by giving people choices and options. Choices or options that I gave them put me under a lot of pressure, but it still gave me an opportunity. And I think there's a lot of people lose opportunities in life because their want of the end result doesn't give them an opportunity to even get it started. Letting people graduate into that process, it's too restrictive up front. And it's just really remembering what we do. We're dealing with people selling the most important thing in their entire life. It's the house. It's where they've raised their kids. It's where they've got their memories. And all we're trying to do is get our point across and tell them what it's going to sell for. Just selling a home for a number. They've got 20 years of memories built up in this house. There's an emotional connection to it. And when I started looking at these different options that I put in front of people, it was helping them solve the emotional connection. It gave them some freedom of choice, because it goes through that remorse. After you list a home, they start freaking out, like, what am I going to do? And it just gave me the ability to have that partnership, have that commitment to them that they could talk to me, be honest. I'm talking to them twice a week about exactly what's happening in the market, giving them honest feedback. They know every time somebody views that home, I'm there taking them through it. And talk about build a referral base. I mean, incredible. Like every one of my clients will talk to their friends and family, go, look, I got this document that I've got. And it was just one of the best things I ever did. It was just really took away the fear, gave people some comfort. And I think if we just look at everything we do in life, it's always about creating options. I mean, we've all got choices. We're generally going to make one. If we get pushed into a corner, we've got one choice to make, we're going to fight it. And I think that's just a good life lesson. Buying a new car, if you only had one car to buy, you'd be pretty frustrated. But we go to the car lot, we look at hundreds, we choose something that works out well for us. That should be the same when it comes to business. And if we can give people multiple options, we're going to have a lot more success in the things that we do, because people are generally going to choose something. So just get flexible with it. Breaking down, I mean, the one thing I would say is look at what creates the most objections in your business, whether it's your fee structure, whether it's your pricing structure, whether it's your marketing structure, and create different options around those. Obviously, things that fit with your requirements, your regulatory issues that you have in your area, but make sure that you can create some different options. And they don't have to be significant. They can just be subtle changes here and there. And watch how people change. When you sit down with somebody and say, look, here's all the different things I can do for you, it's incredible. It does change the engagement, the interaction. And it becomes a little bit more of a you and me conversation than it's like I'm sort of fighting you against what I want. So incredible process. Like I said, options becomes really powerful negotiating tool as well, because less force. And I have this theory in life of force versus choice. If you force somebody to do something because you're offering something that's cheap or convenient or whatever it is, they're always going to be looking for a reason to get out. If people choose to work with you, they're always going to be looking for a reason to stay. And that's one of the coolest things about real estate is if you let people choose, and they choose to work with you, they'll always find reasons to stay with you. If they decide to work with you because you're offering some sort of slick deal, whether it's cheap or whatever it is, they're always going to be looking for a way to get out of it or just try and get more out of you. So choices and options, coolest negotiating thing you'll ever have. Is it just makes life easier. It's a great deflector as well. When you're in a listing presentation, things get a little awkward. Well, if that doesn't work for you, maybe we could look at this. So it does become a really good deflector as well. So I've also found that very effective for newer people in the business. I think more seasoned agents will have a lot more flexibility to talk around certain situations. But imagine if you're watching this video now and you're a little bit newer in the industry, you want to start showing some professionalism, give people some choices. Maybe start going through some different options that they can choose. And now they're focusing on the choices that you're putting in front, not who the person is delivering it. So really, really great tip for someone that's potentially getting into the business and looking for a way to really sort of a foundation for what their career is going to look like. Create options, people will always choose something.
Maybe you remind the people to like and subscribe to your channel.
Yes, okay, yeah, way. Yeah, so hey, if you really like the information that we're sharing, I mean, there'll be a lot of this sort of stuff, and I think this is really about giving people some truth and some honesty and some things that really, really will work to help you grow your business. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us along, and I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot more great tips with you.